Maybe you've never said this out loud, but there was a moment you looked in the mirror and you no longer knew who you were. On the outside, you still smiled, still went to work, still looked fine. But inside, something was quietly falling apart. A silent call. A part of you, buried deep, was screaming. And no one could hear it. And the most painful part, weren't you lost? It was that you couldn't say it out loud to anyone, because they might think you're weak or unstable. But only you know. Something deeper is happening. A crack, a nameless tremor, an invisible invitation, pulling you toward a place you've never touched. This isn't a video to help you wake up. It's not a list of 5 signs you're high vibe. This is the map you were never given. Because real awakening doesn't start with the light. It begins with a breakdown. Maybe you've tried so hard to be okay. But then, one morning, you wake up feeling so empty. You no longer even know who you are. Not because something terrible happened, but because everything that once made you feel fine suddenly means nothing at all. You look around the same familiar room, and it feels strange. You step outside, and the world has lost its color. There's no explosion, no crash, just a quiet fracture spreading from the inside. You search for reasons, but there aren't any. You look for someone who understands, but everyone says you seem normal. This nameless fear, you can't put it into words, but it's there, like a strange emptiness, hollow and deep, pulling you in, yet scaring you enough to cry. And you start to ask, am I depressed? Am I slowly going mad? But there's one part of you, small, quiet, that whispers, no, this isn't madness. This is the beginning of unraveling, the beginning of something with no name. The beginning of a journey you didn't choose, but your soul did, long ago. And if you're here now, it's not because something is wrong with you. It's because of the old shell can no longer hold. The light is trying to be born inside you. It cracked, it broke, and right in that moment, you began to awaken. Before everything cracked open, you thought you were living authentically, but then you realized most of your life wasn't a choice. It was a reflex to be good, a reflex to not be abandoned, a reflex to make someone, anyone, love you, even just a little. You learned how to read the room, how to smile at the right moment, how to hide your anger, your sadness, your loneliness, as if they were something to erase. You weren't living, you were reacting. And the scariest part was, you didn't even know you were unconscious. You thought you were doing the right thing, thought you were living well, but really, you were just adapting to survive. Old wounds buried beneath your performance. They were still running the show. Memories you don't even recall. We're shaping how you love. How do you work? How do you face yourself in the mirror? You weren't you. You were a collection of everything that ever hurt you, and you never got the chance to look at it. Honestly, this phase wasn't your fault. No one taught you how to listen within. No one told you that feelings are maps, not enemies. But if you've started noticing the patterns, the same relationships, the same emotions, the same wounds repeating, then maybe your unconscious is trying to speak. And this is the moment. You no longer want to live the old way. No longer want just to be fine. No longer want to be nice. You want to be real, even if real is messy, even if the real is chaotic. At least, it's you. You don't know exactly when it began. All you know is, one day, you stopped being who you thought you were. The things you used to take pride in suddenly felt meaningless. The goals you once chased now felt hollow. You looked at everything that used to define you. I'm the good child. I'm someone with purpose. I'm the one who loves deeply. And then, one by one, they all fell apart. Not because someone took them from you, but because you realized you were never truly any of those things. They were masks you wore just to be accepted, roles you inherited, from family, from society, from religion. Ego death isn't a sacred ceremony. It's a quiet unraveling, a death with no funeral. You don't lose your life, but you lose every identity that once held you together. And in that space, you feel devastatingly lost. You're no longer the successful child, no longer the awakened spiritual being, no longer the one on the right path. You're just a nameless shadow. There are nights when you sit in silence, staring at the mirror, and you don't even recognize who's staring back. Everything you believed. I'm good. I'm healing. I understand now. Begins to shatter like slow breaking glass, not in one loud crash, but in quiet pieces, falling, cutting you open as they break. You try to hold on, but the more you cling, the deeper you sink. It feels like falling into weightless space. No anchor, no ground, no bottom. Every belief system, every method, every truth you once studied, suddenly feels empty. You used to believe the universe had order. Now it feels cold, uncertain. But in that darkness, something else begins to whisper. Soft, very soft. A feeling, not from your head, but from somewhere deep in your chest. Not a judging voice, not positive thinking, just presence, quiet, unspoken. And in that moment, you stop trying to understand. You begin to listen. If I'm not who I thought I was, then who am I? You don't have an answer, only a strange kind of space. No direction, no goal, no one to lean on. But in that stillness, something opens, a gentle feeling, as if another part of you. It is quietly rising, not the ego, not the part that needs to prove anything, but a presence, real, quiet, and undeniable. And for the first time, you begin to sense something. No one ever taught you that you are not your thoughts, not your fleeting emotions, not the layers of identity you've collected through the years. You are the one watching it all. Still, unmoved. Ego death is not about killing the ego. It's about seeing it clearly and letting go of your attachment to it. You don't need to prove anything anymore. Don't need to be better. Don't need to be understood. You only need to stay with part of you that's quietly watching everything without judgment. And that, it is where freedom begins. After the old ego collapsed, you thought you were finally free, but you weren't, because the mind always needs something to cling to. When you were no longer the good child, the perfect employee, the self-sacrificing lover, you became the awakened one, the high-vibe being, the person who understands the law of attraction, healing, and numerology. You changed your language, changed your circle, changed who you followed online. But deep down, something familiar kept repeating. You still felt above others, still believed those who didn't get it were not on your level yet. And slowly, you began to run from your pain, using a light that looked beautiful, but made you blind. Spiritual bypass. It is when we use spirituality to cover our fear, our anger, our wounds, instead of holding and healing them. You meditate, not to feel peace, but to escape anxiety. You speak words of love, but avoid the raw pain beneath them. You study high frequencies and start fearing you're falling every time you feel sad. You fear anger, fear of crying, fear being honest, because spiritual people shouldn't be negative, right? But the very moment you stop allowing yourself to feel, it is the moment you lose touch with your soul. True light. Never reject the dark. You don't need to be positive all the time. You don't need to be high frequency to be lovable. You just need to be honest. If you're angry, be angry. If you're sad, be sad. If you're lost, let yourself be lost, because truth will never lead you astray. What leads you astray is pretending you're on the right path. When your heart no longer believes it, this is not failure. It's an invitation to return to the parts of you that hasn't yet been fully seen. And from there, a new path begins. This time, noted by light, but by truth. When the teachings no longer feel enough, when the books you once devoured now read like empty words, when the awakening videos no longer strikes a chord, maybe you've entered the real search. This time, you're no longer chasing high frequency, no longer collecting knowledge to impress anyone. You're simply seeking something you can touch, a truth that isn't polished, not poetic, not waiting to be approved, just real. And you begin the search like someone starving. You read, you listen, you study, but unlike before, this time you're not seeking to know, you're seeking to remember something ancient, something you once knew, but somehow forgot. You search for a teacher, a phrase, a piece of music that makes you cry for reasons you can't explain. You try meditation, energy work, soul connection, ancestor rituals, listening to your intuition. And then there comes a moment you realize you're no longer searching out there. The moments that pierce the deepest. These are the ones when you're alone in silence, letting your tears fall for no reason at all. You begin to hear whispers in your chest. The ones you used to ignore because they didn't make sense. But now, logic is no longer enough. Science can't explain the feeling that something is calling you, not for success, not to be special, but to live truthfully, raw and whole. The search is no longer an intellectual journey. It's become a journey of the soul, and somewhere along that path, you start to feel a flicker, something impossibly small, not a blinding light, but a soft pulse in your heart, as if something is gently guiding you, though you have no idea where are you going, and that it is the sign. You're no longer in control. You're surrendering, in the most sacred way. After everything you've learned, everything you've experienced, everything your soul has remembered, there comes a moment when you no longer want to talk about it. You no longer need beautiful words to explain everything. You don't feel the urge to share your spiritual journey all the time. You just want to live, not live spiritually, just live truthfully. You start saying no to empty conversations. You begin listening to your body more than other people's opinions. You eat more slowly. You breathe more deeply. You no longer meditate to raise your vibration. You simply close your eyes because your soul needs rest. This is when you stop needing rituals, stop needing the right method, because everything is becoming a part of you. You no longer study healing. You live with your wounds gently. You don't analyze your trauma. You walk beside it without needing to fix it right away. And strangely, it's the moment you stop needing to be healed that the healing begins. Old wounds no longer make you react. People who once hurt you, you no longer feel the need to blame. Not because you forgive, but because you no longer need to play the role of the victim. To know you have worth, you pause, right here. Even if the path ahead is unclear, even if the past still whispers, you choose to stay with yourself. For the first time, unconditionally, you are no longer someone on a self-development journey. You are someone who embodies the truth your soul has remembered. You used to live to prove yourself. Now you just live for yourself. You used to read a dozen books, trying to understand who you were. Now, 5 quiet minutes, watching your breath, tell you more than any page ever could. Every step becomes sacred. Every sip of water reminds you. You are here, in this body, in this moment. You no longer practice kindness. You become kind, as naturally as breathing. You realize not everyone needs to understand your path, and you don't need to explain the light to those who only see shadows. Embodiment is walking through a room full of noise and still being quiet inside. It's washing the dishes with the same presence you bring to meditation. It's hearing an old song and smiling at the memory, not clinging, not running. You no longer want to post something inspiring. You just want to live a life. That is inspiring, in its raw truth. And slowly, you begin to notice every part of you that once felt broken is sitting back down together. No more screaming, no more blame. Just a gentle settling, like shards finding their place in a cracked vase. Not perfect, but true, and strong enough to hold the light again. Embodiment isn't a destination. It's how you get out of bed in the morning. It's how you hold yourself when one else does. It's how you enter the day, not to prove anything, but simply to live fully. And if you still feel unfinished, good, because embodiment never needed you to be perfect. It only needed you to be honest about what's alive inside you right now. And that is enough. You're no longer running, not trying to reach your best self, not striving to become someone more worthy, because now you see, you didn't come here to become. You came here to remember that you've always been enough. Alignment isn't some elevated state. It's not eternal bliss. It's when you touch a quiet steadiness inside, even while the world outside still swirls. You start to live, not to avoid pain, but to embrace it, not to prove anything, but simply to be here. You eat when you're hungry, not for a wellness routine. You sleep when you're tired, not because of a strict schedule. You laugh only when it's real. You cry without needing a good reason, and you love without conditions. You love others the way you're learning to love yourself. Alignment is sitting with someone and not needing to be understood. It's looking into the eyes of the one who once hurt you and feeling no blame, because you now see their pain mirroring the pain you once carried. Alignment doesn't make you higher. It makes you closer, closer to life, closer to the earth, closer to your breath. You stop trying to hold energy. You let it flow, because now you know everything is in motion. There's nothing to cling to, nothing to control. You live like water, fluid, gentle, yet powerful in your quiet way. Alignment isn't a spiritual achievement. It's being accepted by yourself in every single moment. Sometimes you step back. Sometimes you blaze forward. Sometimes you just need to rest, and all of it is right, because you're no longer divided, no longer fighting against yourself. Alignment is when every part of you, the child, the hurt one, the fragile, the strong, all come to sit together. No part is pushed away. None have to scream to be heard. They simply sit at the same table. Like a council of reconciliation within your soul, a place where the wounded part is no longer ignored, where the strong part no longer has to hold it all together, where the small part no longer pretends to be fine. You're not forcing unity, you're simply listening to every part of you with a gentleness you've never known. And when every part is allowed to exist, a quiet peace begins to rise from within, not from outside, not from results, but from the silent union inside you. This is not the end. It's a sacred pause before the next step. No longer walking in struggle, but in freedom. If you're still here, Maybe it's not because this video was great, or because you needed more answers. Maybe it's because something deep within you touched something real, a calling, without words, a feeling, with no need to prove itself. Maybe you don't have a name for it, but you felt it, and that is enough. No one ever becomes fully awakened. No one falls behind because of a bad day. You don't need to be perfect to feel connected. You don't need to be fully healed to be loved. You don't need to remember everything, to be gently guided. You only need to stay with whatever part of you is trembling right now. If tomorrow you feel lost again, confused, angry, uncertain, that's okay. You're not going backwards. Maybe you're spiraling deeper. Every break is not a failure. Every tear is not weakness. It's the memory of your soul, being slowly, softly stirred, like morning light, pressing through a quiet mist. And you, even without a clear map, have been brave enough to take one more step. No one can walk this path for you. No one can tell you what's right or wrong. But if there's ever a moment you feel completely alone, come back here, not to find answers, but to remember. You were never truly lost. Everything you've been seeking has been quietly seeking you too. No need to rush, no need to get it right. This journey isn't over. It's only just beginning. And if today you feel tired, pause, close your eyes, place your hand on your chest, whisper your name, like calling back an old friend. You almost forgot, not to search, but to remember. Wherever your presence rests, that place is home. And if someday you need to return, this space will still be here, gently waiting for you to come back. And if, somewhere inside, you feel this journey should continue, then let the next videos find you. When your soul is ready, you don't need to subscribe out of duty. Just remember this space exists as a place you can return to whenever life pulls you off rhythm, softly, no pressure. I'll still be here,